I was outside recently and happened to find something interesting under my crawl space. It looks like it might have some Asian influence based on the style and the intricate painting, but it also has a vibe that reminds me of the kinds of decor that were popular in the 1990s or even the 1980s. The object feels like it's made of ceramic since it's only a few pounds, and I can even see some of the ceramic showing through the paint on the bottom. There's also some kind of writing or a stamp on the bottom, written in red over white paint. The piece measures about 9 inches wide, with a 7 to 7.5 inch opening, and it's about 7 inches deep. It's painted in a variety of colors, and I'm almost certain it's hand-painted. I'm really curious about what it might be, but I have no idea. Does anyone recognize this item? That is a piss pot. I'm not joking when I say that. It was used as a way of being able to pee in the night without having to go to an outhouse, before the popularization of indoor toilets. Usually, the urine was thrown out the window in the morning. However, this all depends on location and era. It may be very, very old, or it may be from the late 1800s, very early 1900s. So, there's this thing under the kitchen counter in my new apartment. It's got these rigid metal prongs that don't seem to come out. I'm honestly not sure what it is, but there are a few clues that help explain what it isn't. First, the prongs are made of metal that's a bit rusty. That's not great if it's meant to be used with anything wet, so it's probably not some sort of kitchen tool designed for that purpose. They were punched from a metal sheet, and the edges aren't machined for precision. No smoothness, no fine-tuning. This pretty much rules out any kind of sharpening tool. Plus, there's no visible wear on the prongs that would suggest it's been used to open jars, so that idea's out too. The shape and material also don't make sense for a heatsink or radiator. It's not copper or aluminum, which is typically used for those kinds of tasks, and there's no obvious source of heat nearby. It looks like it's made up of two pieces, so maybe it was designed to be mounted at different spacings depending on the situation. But I'm pretty sure it's not a knife sharpener or a knife holder. It's right against where the cabinet door closes, with no room for a knife handle. Plus, there's no metal at the bottom between the metal fins. And the way the gap gets smaller as you go up makes it seem like it's meant to hold a cylindrical object in place. I can't make sense of it yet, but it definitely doesn't fit into any of the common categories. Any ideas? It's an arc chute. An arc chute is a device used in electrical systems, typically in circuit breakers or switches, to extinguish the electric arc that forms when contacts open and interrupt current flow. When electrical contacts in a switch or circuit breaker separate under load, an arc is created due to the high voltage. If not quickly extinguished, this arc can cause damage or even lead to a fire. It had no place being in the spot that it was. The previous resident must have been using it for something completely different, which is a whole new can of worms in itself. I found this little guy under a stair in a parking garage at the mall. His clothes are made from thread, and his hair looks like glue dipped in dirt. I couldn't help but wonder if it had something to do with spells or some kind of ritual. The way it was made and left there felt intentional, almost like it was meant to be found. Does anyone know what it is? It is a worry doll. You tell your worries to it and put it under your pillow at night. It's supposed to take away your worries while you're sleeping. I found this buried under some bricks that were laid in 1912. It seemed to be made of pressed wood. The building has had a lot of different uses over the decades, so maybe the bricks were relaid at some point. The building, called Green Gables in Atlanta, has recently been renovated for office space. I discovered this in the basement while digging through some dirt, along with a few old, expensive French roof tile spares. Over the years, The building has served many purposes: a church, an elderly home, and a law practice space. Each of these eras has left behind some remnants around the house, like service buttons for the elderly at the bottom of the stairs, which I never even knew had that function. Any ideas what this thing is? It's a bookend, to keep your books upright on your fireplace mantel. Maybe one made by Syroco. I found an antique trading website that had an interesting article on Syroco. The new product combined wood pulp from the Adirondacks with flour as a binder and other materials. After extrusion, it was cut to fit compression molds. These molds were created from original wood carvings by woodcarvers who had originally come to the United States from various European countries. The production of this new molded product became the mainstay of the company's offerings through the 1940s. The finished model could be smoothed and varnished to look like wood, or it could be painted. I found this crazy mask under the foundation of my house. It's made of clay, and we didn't find anything else around it. We didn't dig much further, but the mask really resembles those tree decorative masks you sometimes see. Any idea what this could be? My first thought was that it kind of looks like it's modeled after a plague doctor mask. But after doing some research, it seems like it's actually a fairly modern, 1970 to now, ceramic tree face piece that you attach to trees to give your yard or garden some character. Most of the ones I see available now have separate eyes, noses, and mouths, though some do have fixed eyes and noses. The most confusing part is the area below the nose. The style gives the impression that someone from this century made it in a ceramics class as garden decor, and it just ended up getting buried. It was found 32 centimeters under the surface in a horse-plowed field in Norway by a metal detector. The readings showed it was made of copper or bronze and weighed 40 grams. My first thought was that it looked like an early ball bearing housing for something that swiveled. I guessed it could be some sort of farm equipment from the late 19th or early 20th century. But then I started to question that assumption. The setup of those spinners wouldn't work for something rotating on top of it. The middle one doesn't align with the outer one's movements at all. And the decoration, it just didn't fit with what you'd expect from regular farming tools. It seemed too elaborate, too ornate. Most farm equipment would be purely functional, not decorated in such a way. And yet, the layout of the piece felt very modern, with all those right angles and geometric lines. Anyone know what this might be?